All right. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another episode of Dion's Daily Dose. Today, we are joined by Ralph Calhoun here in the background. We're trying to do as much social distancing as we can, but the good news is it's a small group. So he's here. We're calling this, I guess, Real Talk with Ralph, right? So over here, I noticed you can't really read the red that well, but it'll be all right. So he is a former correctional officer. I worked with him for years at Indiana State Prison. We were both there for a while. He was there longer than I was, considerably longer. Yeah. How long?
Almost 14 years.
Almost 14 years. That's a lot. That's a major portion of someone's life. So after he left the prison, he went to
ArcelorMittal.
Yep. So, yeah. So he's got experience as both a law enforcement officer and a union steelworker. Now, I need to make a couple things perfectly clear. He does not represent the union. His views are his own, and he's not really going to be talking that much. He just has some hard-hitting questions that he wants answered from me, from a Leo and steel mill worker perspective. There are some important questions out there, and he gave me a sneak peek shortly before I came on, but it's not like I had a real chance to prepare anything. So this is going to be interesting. Thank you for joining us. We appreciate it. I'm going to try to direct, questions or answers to you while still addressing the viewers. So it might get kind of weird, but the floor.
You don't have to look at me at all.
Okay. All right. Fair enough. I will address you then.
Okay. Well, first, I wanted you to let everybody know, hey, this is my area. This is where I'm going to represent. Who are you going to be representing?
Okay, so yeah, District 1, is LaPorte. It's part of LaPorte County, right? It's Michigan City and northeast of Michigan City, almost up to all the way to the east, right? And then down along basically 421, right down that area, down to 30. So the west side of LaPorte County, and then all of Lake and Porter counties is District 1.
Okay. What made you decide to run for Congress? Why did you?
Okay, so I never really thought about running for office very much. I mean, maybe in my 20s I was like, ooh, I'm going to be president someday. Like most, especially as a young kid or teenager. But beyond that, not, right? When I saw what was happening, especially with the political climate, with all the hate and the corruption in DC, and just the vileness that's being thrown at people because they believe a certain way, like, in essence, being a Republican now, right? It's like, well, do we have someone, because Pete Visclosky announced that he was going to retire. I called the county parties and I was like, okay, what can I do? Who can I support? And their answer essentially was, well, if you know of a good candidate, let us know. And I stopped and I thought about it and I said, why not? Why not me? I have experience from all across the kind of socioeconomic spectrum, I guess. I was a correctional officer. I was a truck driver. I did real estate. And more importantly to me is I can communicate and understand people that don't agree with me politically, right? They might have what they consider or we consider to be extremely radical ideas or beliefs, but it's important to understand that these people are part of the district as well. We don't agree, like those, for example, Medicare for all. I don't believe in Medicare for all, but I don't think it's the right way to go about the problem, but I do believe that something definitively needs to be done with the healthcare system. So I can understand their desire and take that and show, okay, let's bring both sides together. I've always been kind of good at that, talking to this side and talking to this side and figuring out a way for both to work together. So ultimately I decided, you know what, why not? Let's go for it. Someone needs to.
All right, so you kind of killed my second question.
Okay.
My second question is what makes you feel like you're that man for the job?
Okay, that's
What kind of experience do you have with people, with problem solving, with communicating with other different politicians?
right,
You know?
right. Well, I think a big part of what we need in a congressional representative here is we need to have someone who can talk to both sides. We need to have someone who can understand where, because let's face it, this has been a Democratic stronghold for 35 years under Pete, and way before that, 90 plus years since a Republican's been elected. A Republican, whoever gets past the primary, is going to have to understand that not everyone in the district is a Republican. Not that doesn't represent everything. That's why I'm a very strong constitutionalist. The Constitution applies to left and right. It's all of us. I think that that's important. I think protecting our rights is important, no matter which side of the political spectrum you land on. I've dealt with guys at Indiana State Prison for years that obviously worked alongside many of them that had very different political ideals than me. And I remember in the PDR talking politics. Oh my goodness. And it would, I'm not gonna lie, it would get frustrating, it'd be like, oh, why can't they see that? But it never degenerated in name calling or anything like that. And I think that that's important. We also need someone that is going to stand up for the beliefs and ideals of the people of the district. And that's why I say constitutionalist. I've never been a politician, and I personally see that as a plus. I see that as, we've seen what happens when career politicians get into office. It's more of the same. I think it's time for new, fresh blood. I think it's time for someone that honestly and accurately represents the district, including both sides of the political coin.
So, keeping in mind, there's usually an underlying goal. There's usually an idea of what people want to do, what they want to accomplish. What are you going to bring to office to achieve common goals?
Okay, well, that's kind of my thing. Is it seems like everyone running for office, especially lately, but in general, all the way back, has some sort of agenda that they want to bring. And it's good to have goals like fixing the healthcare system or protecting liberties. I was asked on Ballotpedia, one of the questions that they asked is, what sort of, assuming you win this election, what sort of a legacy do you want to leave behind? And I don't want to leave a legacy. I'm not in this to create some powerful political connection. What I would like to do is see our rights held onto. I'd like to see protection for our economy that's spiraling out of control. We need some fiscally conservative representatives in office that are willing to stand up and say, this is wrong, Madam Speaker, you're crazy, or whatever it takes to get the point across. And ultimately, I'm not afraid of doing that. Because I don't have some political dynasty to protect. I don't have this thing where I want to bring my kids into the family business of politics or anything like that. So yeah.
What do you think about term limits?
I think term limits are a fantastic idea. We have term limits on our president. Everyone agrees, at least the vast majority of people agree, that term limits for the president are a great idea, but they're not for Congress because the will of the voters, right? That's the only that I found only good, and I use good. But when you ask people, well, why shouldn't there be term limits? Well, that goes against the will of the voter. Well, then so does term limits on a president. So if it's okay for the president, which is, a fully equal branch of government, then why wouldn't we apply that to Congress? And I believe that we should. I don't think that any more than I kind of looked at it right, and I think a decade is more than enough time. So 5 2-year terms as a House of Representatives max. That's like mega max. And the only reason I say even that long is because that's kind of how the position's set up in order to, I guess, as far as and that's another thing, like the way that the pay structure is set up for it, I don't think is right. And you need 10 years before you collect full pension or retirement, which I don't agree with either. But if you're going to set up the system that way, then you have to allow people to reach that max. And 10 years is kind of the minimum in order to get like
get vested.
Yeah. Whereas with, senators, 2 6-year terms would, 12 years is more than enough. If you can accomplish something in those 12 years, then it's time to move on to different offices. Whether it's, if you want to continue in politics, go be governor, change from House of Representatives to Senate. It's not restricted to completely. Go help locally, become, mayor or state rep or something like that. But when you have a single office being held for decades, 30 plus years, the level of influence that this person wields is incredible. It really is, because you have the same person kind of setting the tone for all of these proposals, all of these backroom deals that they shouldn't have, but we all know they do. So I'm absolutely in favor of term limits.
So do you think they kind of lose touch with reality?
Oh, absolutely.
What's going on in the world today?
Yeah, that's a great question too, because we see these people. Everybody likes to to pick on Nancy Pelosi because it's so just blatant, right? Her eating ice cream and talking about how she loves chocolate when millions of Americans are on unemployment. Standing in front of two $24,000 refrigerators, talking to us about her priorities and bragging that she got people to shut down a bill that would help small business. That's out of touch. That's as out of touch as you can get. And look at how long she's been in office. And she's not the only one by any means. She's not, the left isn't the only one that has this. We have plenty on the right as well. Both, I'm not making this a partisan issue. This, if anything's a bipartisan problem, it's, people being in office for too long and losing touch with regular people. Because even if you start off, and some have, even if you start off as a regular, let's even call it blue collar or white collar American, you go to Congress and you start getting in that inner circle of Washington, D.C., and you forget what it's like. You are more worried about your White House dinner or, White House correspondence and then this press release or that press release. And that's why I believe that it's so important to keep cycling new blood into the legislative system, because look, we have tons of millionaires and lawyers writing the laws for us, telling us what we have to do, not them, because it never seems to apply to them, just us. So we have tons of people making laws that have no idea, even if they started off knowing how to be us, once they're there for a while, I believe they either forget, become corrupt. Here's the thing, even if you don't attribute any negative to them, right? It's just the way it is, that after a while, you forget what it was like. Look at these rappers, for example, right? The real ones who actually started off poor, worked their way up. Once they make their millions, do you think they really, really remember what it was like to be from the ghetto, to be that poor?
From the hood.
Right, from the hood or the whatever you want to call it.
So what do you think about the extreme left and right and extreme right, how it seems to be broken down into several factions now? It's not just Republican and Democrat anymore. Now it's, example, like the extremists.
Okay.
So now they're calling extremists far right or far left.
Yeah.
Or whatever. So now it's almost like we have.
Right. Yeah, you have like alt-right,
4 different parties, and then you got kind of the middle,
Right.
So it's almost like there's 5 different factions. Because most people, I believe, stand kind of on the line, where they're kind of like, okay, well, yeah, I believe this on this side, but I believe strong on this side, but and you're kind of in between.
Right. No, that's great. I mean, great question. So that's part of what's wrong, right? That's part of what's wrong today is all of this. Most of us sit in the middle, I believe. We're kind of, conservative for the most part, but there are some things that, we believe, hey, that's not such a bad idea, like better health care for everyone. Let's face it, if it wouldn't bankrupt us, I'd love to have, healthcare taken care of, don't have to worry about it. But we have to think realistically. And that's something that I believe all of us want. It's not that it's not wanted, we just need to figure out how to get there. But you see the polarization, and yeah, it's in the media, but it's also on social media. It's also in our interactions. We have family members that we can't talk to because we voted, because I got this guy in the background, right? Because I have him, I'm evil, or, any host of other names. You're going to have the extremists. You're always going to have those. You're going to have those people that hate no matter what. But most of us, I believe, whether it's, from over here or over here, we all kind of believe this. We might be a little further here or a little further there, but the majority of us aren't out there wanting people hurt, it's just the media portrayal that there's so many people like that, whether it's Antifa or, the KKK, whatever, those extremes exist, sure, but they don't represent the majority, not even close. The vast majority of Americans are peace-loving, hardworking people who might have, this conservative belief that, all life is sacred, like I do. But then you have this person who believes that, okay, my body, my choice. Okay, but we all want to be able to live in a safe neighborhood. We all want our kids to be able to go to school and not get hurt, taken care of, get a decent education. We all want the same things at the center, right? The majority, I think, we agree on. It's those little things that separate us so much. And it's played on, right? It's pushed out there as if it's everything. The division is everything. When it's not. We agree far more, that I believe, than they want us to believe. We agree on far more than we divide us.
Just for the people on the outside, I don't know, because I'm not looking at it from any kind of political level.
Right.
What you hear on the news, it just seems like there's a lot of people out there that are trying to divide factions.
Oh, yeah. Oh,
and
absolutely.
That is create hate between whites and African Americans and Hispanics, and just kind of bunch everybody up in their own little group. So there's all these different factions instead of just Americans.
Right. And that's another thing, too. Remember, we used to just refer to ourselves as Americans, right? Just across the board, yep, I'm an American. And then labels started getting more and more and more in use. And it started a long time ago. It's not a recent phenomenon. They used to, like Italian Americans, when they first came here, when Italians first, immigrated here, they were treated horribly, right? Same thing with many other, groups or factions, whatever you want to call it. They came here, they were treated horribly, and then they integrated. And they became,
faction, for lack of a better term.
I don't know what to call it. You're from Italy, you're an Italian, but they came here, they were treated, terribly in many, many cases, not always, but in many cases. And so they developed kind of an identity as an Italian American rather than an American, because they weren't welcome with open arms. And I think that's kind of where that started from. And it just kind of took off. I like to think of all of us as just Americans, wherever you came from, whatever your heritage, we're just Americans. And that's kind of why, one of the big reasons why I'm a Republican, is I believe everyone is equal, all of us, until and unless you break some laws or hurt somebody, leave my stuff alone, don't hurt me. Yeah. We're all Americans, we're all equal, and we should all be treated equally. That's kind of the foundation of being a Republican to me, is equality across the board. Stop, victim shaming and identification politics. Just be an American.
I don't remember ever running around saying, "Hey, I'm Scotch American."
Right? Yeah, I'm Cajun American. I'm French American. I'm just an American. I joked a little. I said I think I'm the first Cajun to run for office. To run for Congress in Indiana. I just identify as an American. I don't try to separate myself. That's a division tactic. I really believe that. It's a division tactic. Like you said, there are those groups, absolutely, that want to divide us. They want us to not agree on things. They want us to be at each other's throats, because then we can't focus on what's really going on. We can't look at what they're doing if we're busy fighting each other. And that's really what it comes down to, I think, is
Smoke screen.
Yeah, absolutely. The more they can keep us at each other's throats, the more they can get away with.
Okay, so back to the third question. We kind of got off of there a little bit. So that was about there's always the underlying goal. What are you going to bring to office to achieve common goals? Now, but what about the desire of the people? How are you going to integrate that into with what you got?
Right. No.
So, like, let's say the affordable health care.
Okay.
Right. Mm-hmm. That was kind of a common goal. Everybody wants insurance. Everybody wants it all to work out and be good.
Right.
So you got people down at the bottom of the list, the worker.
Right.
That's like, wait a minute. This isn't going to work, because I'm going to end up having to pay a lot more than I'm not going to be able to afford it. I'm not going to be able to afford a family plan or whatever.
Yeah.
So how would you balance that
when
the common goal is get everybody insurance, but you have the people that you're representing saying, "Hey, dude, we can't do this."
Right.
You know.
No, that's a great question. So the way I look at it is I've told my stance before on healthcare, but the important thing that I really want people to understand is I'm open to better ideas that aren't going to put the burden on the worker, the bottom of the pyramid, right? I talked about the pyramid where you have, the people at the top, the super wealthy, the ones who, make the decisions, as it were, and at the bottom of the pyramid are the worker drones. If we adopt a system like Medicare for All that in my opinion unfairly puts the burden onto the middle class, the working class, that's not a good thing. I believe in full price tag transparency and integration of the system like the prison used, the deductible security. Was it perfect? No, it wasn't. When they remember, we used to have awesome insurance. Yeah, with the card, we used to have amazing health insurance at the prison, amazing. And then Mitch Daniels came in and threw a hand grenade, right?
The knife.
Yeah, blew up the union, messed up our health insurance. That said, when they integrated the health, when they started doing the health savings accounts and all of that, it took a bit. At first, I was like, I don't know, man, this sucks compared to the other. But the price difference, it actually made it affordable. And once you work it out down the line, I think it's our best option because it keeps private insurance intact. And that's actually what drives all the innovation that we have for new medications, for new treatments, for medical technology. None of these things would exist under a Medicare for All system because Medicare pays very, very little when it comes to doctors. They've run reports. The number of doctors would decrease dramatically. Lines. We know what happens with that in other countries. Look, we're seeing the effects of socialized medicine in other countries right now with the pandemic. They're overwhelmed. They're deciding, these people don't deserve to live, but these people do. These people that are old, we pull the plug on them. They don't matter. I'm not for any system that's going to determine whether you live or die based on, your age or value to the collective. Because that's what it is. They rate your value to the collective. Once you're, 80 plus years old, you're not useful. Then it came down to, 70-year-old because we need this, or 60-year-old because we still need these machines. I believe, Paul said you believe in human rights, and that's exactly right. I believe all of us are equal. I don't believe there's one group or class or age group that's more important or less important than anyone else.
Okay. So you kind of, you went off on the insurance because that's what I used as the example.
Right. Okay.
Okay. So, but the question was more of,
right. Sorry.
How are you going to
represent everyone?
Represent your people and balance it to achieve this common goal?
Right. Well, I think the important thing whenever you're talking about, especially such an issue like healthcare. You have to look at who's going to be affected by this. One of the things that I like to judge legislation by is imagining that I am the lowest rung of the ladder on who this is going to influence, right? So let's say healthcare, insurance, gun rights, whatever. I imagine that I'm the least worthy out of all the things that this could possibly affect. And then I go, how does that make me feel? Right? Is it worth it to be unduly to be the burden, as it were, or to carry the burden for other people? Or is it something that I believe everyone could benefit from? And it's one of the issues with just legislation in general is there's so many pages and so many issues that are tried to push into one bill. Representative Massey has said it. I've seen it. We need to work towards making each thing one issue, each bill a single issue, so that it can stand on its own merit. If it can't stand on its own merit, then it shouldn't be written into law. I want to represent everyone. I know that not everyone's going to have the same belief as me, the same system in place, the same focus as I have, but we have to go to the heart of the matter, which is the Constitution. That's the first check, right? Does it comply with the Constitution? Is it going to affect everyone? And I believe a lot of our representatives, a lot of our congressmen and women forget the fact that they have to put themselves in that position. They have to see, if this affected me, would I want this law, right? And that's something that I try to put forward in whatever legislation I want to put forward, or whatever I want to seek, is if I was affected by it, would I still want it, right? Because these people are making laws that don't affect them, so they don't care. One thing I think that I would do to make sure that I represent people the best that I can, and to get everyone's voice heard, is like a live stream like this, right? But to have the ability to contact someone all the time. We have these representatives that have the office hours, right? The person sitting at the office. We're so far ahead on technology. There's no reason to have, that anymore. The set office hours and stuff like that. I'm not saying I'm going to, be answering the phone 24 hours a day, but why can't two people do it? Yeah, there's email. There's multiple ways to connect with someone that isn't just picking up the phone and calling them. So I think lines of communication is important, and transparency is important too. Talking to you and saying, okay, I would vote for this, and here's why. Let me know what you think. And the thing to remember too that I want to make sure I get out there is, just because people are most vocal doesn't mean they represent the majority. We're seeing that a lot with our politics, is the people who scream the loudest don't represent the majority, right? So that's important to keep in mind, that there are people who are never going to call their representative. It doesn't matter. They may feel a certain way, but they're just not going to do it because they think their voice doesn't matter or whatever. I'd like to reach those people. I want to hear from them, which is why I want to institute a little better way to reach them, right? We have technology here, so
like an outreach type program or something.
Right.
All right, so here's where we get good. This is the potatoes. What's your fiscal policy?
Okay, I'm a fiscal conservative. I actually believe in a balanced budget amendment. I believe that we got to stop. Look, in every person's life, right? Any regular person that doesn't have a congressional budget, you can only spend so much money, right? You have a certain amount of money that you make every month, and if you spend more than that, you go into debt. Our country's been doing that for decades. It's not any one administration, right? It stretches way back. If we continue to do that, we doom our children, our grandchildren to paying off our debt. We need people who are willing to stand up and say, look, this isn't going to be popular, but we have to cut this. We have to cut that. And that's what it's going to take. We need someone who's willing to put the needs of the people above their reelection. That's really what it comes down to. I'm perfectly content with serving one term and enacting what I can to help the district, because that's what it's going to take. That's what it's going to take from people, because if they're worried about election, they're going to keep stringing us along. And ultimately, the sad fact is people care about the budget. They care about our deficit, but not enough to vote about it. Because if they did, half these people in office wouldn't be there. That's just the way it is.
Kind of what's going on with other stimuluses and all that stuff. They're talking about more stimulus and more stimulus. And
right.
It's great. People need the money, but
Mm-hmm.
what kind of damage is it going to do in the long run?
Thank you. Yeah, exactly. And we're not even having that discussion. That's the big thing, is our media doesn't do their job. We know that. What we need to have is people, economic, experts, come on and talk about, okay, so if we do this, right, with these continuous relief packages, stimulus packages, whatever you want to call it, we keep putting this out there, we keep printing money, what's the long-term effect, right? What's it going to do? How are we going to pay this off? We have a limited number of representatives in office that are even willing to talk about that. Massey is one of them. Rand Paul is one of them. That's really, I think there might be some more, but not many. They're not willing to stand up. Look, when all Massey wanted with this relief bill was Congress to be on the record and say who votes for what, and he was like obliterated, man. Even Trump was like, throw him out of the Republican Party. I'm like, so we need more people that are willing to stand up and take the heat, and I'm willing to do that because
And get thrown out of the Republican Party.
yeah, hey, it is what it is. I'll run as an independent next. So I just, I don't want to be kicked out of the party because it is my ideals, right? The Republican Party lines up with my ideals, but I'm not beholden to a party either.
Okay, so if given a choice of committees that you would sit on, right?
Mm-hmm.
What would you want to sit on, and what would you just want to hang out, supervise? How would you supervise it?
Okay.
Are you a micromanager? Are you one of those that's going to get all into everything and dig into?
Right. I will admit that one of my weaknesses is delegation, right? Because I want to have oversight. That's what it's all about to me. I don't mind letting people do it, but it's one of the reasons why I won't let anyone control my social media accounts, even though there have been people that have, hey, I'll take over your Twitter for you, or I'll take over your Facebook for you, or whatever, because it's not my message. It's someone else putting out a message on my behalf, and I think a lot gets lost then. Yeah, I'm sure they can do a great job. I'm sure they can put it out, but everything that comes out, with the exception of my surveys, because that's kind of published to multiple platforms at a time, my mail, right, MailChimp stuff, with the exception of that, everything that comes out of my social media, every post I make for my official account is me. I believe that's important. There are not enough people, at least, and I'm not saying I can't. There's no way I'm going to be able to maintain all my social media and go to Congress and represent everybody and answer the phone and that's why you have a staff. But one of the most important things I believe is accountability for someone. The buck stops at the top. If you're willing to put someone in charge of your social media account and that person puts something out that makes you look bad, you're the one responsible because you're the one who put them in charge. So accountability is a big thing for me. Any mistakes I make, because I make them, I take responsibility for them. I think we need more of that. Delegation, I'm working on it. I'm working on it. I'm trying to kind of, take a more hands-off kind of a thing. But as far as committees go, I'd really like to do science, like space, and science and technology. I think that'd be awesome. But budget, I'd like to be on the budget committee simply because of oversight. Right? Because someone has to do something about this ridiculousness. all of the committees are important, right? I don't believe that I should sit on the military, funding and all of that, because I think that's important to be a veteran. Just like for the VA, the oversight of the VA, that should be a veteran, someone who's actually been through it. When you put people in charge of things that they have no concept about, then I think that's an issue. I'd like to see someone, like, for example, with me, transportation, right? Department of Transportation. I was a trucker for almost a decade. I think I could make some headway there. As far as infrastructure, I see the issues there. Maybe Bureau of Prison Oversight. I forget what the name of the committee is for that, but
I'm not sure they have many. ACA is a big one.
Yeah,
I think that's a federal.
Yeah, there's many different committees, and that's the other thing, right? The parties control who's on these committees. So you have to, if you want to be on a committee, you have to do what they want. That's one of the many, many, many issues in Washington. I'll serve on whatever committee they decide I'm worthy of, right? But those are the ones that I think I can make the biggest impact on. Primarily, Department of Transportation, infrastructure. I forget the names, but I'd love to do science and technology, but as cool as that would I really, be that great at it? Probably not, because that stuff goes
through a telescope. That's it.
Yeah, that stuff goes way beyond, the tech that I grew up with. It took me a while to figure this out. So all the wild stuff they have now, but infrastructure, transportation, stuff like that, absolutely. I think I'd do a good job on that, because I understand, how it works, right? Hours of service and infrastructure and roads and all of that. It was a big part of my life for a long time.
So, you have any ideas on maybe creating jobs, making more jobs for the community, or what would the word be that I'm looking for? Like having your committee, you know what I mean?
Right. Well, yeah, I understand.
Make more positions to maybe create something totally different.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Well, I do. One thing that I think is really important is, and I've talked about this before a little bit, is congressmen and women, congressional representatives of the House of Representatives have almost $1 million a year to spend on staff, right? $900-something thousand. Their chief of staff gets paid, the average like $130,000. So you still have $800,000 left over after you pay your, average rate of the chief of staff. And then you go down the list. There are a bunch of jobs that could be created just with that. But the important thing, that alone isn't going to help a community, right? It's not going to do much. You're going to help, a few locals, which was the entire point of that. Was you see all these people with all this staff in Washington, right, running around doing all this stuff, when they have maybe one or two people at offices, around the district. I'd like to see more local people employed by these Congress people, actually doing the very thing you were talking about, looking into how to help communities, how to generate jobs, how to work with local and county officials to improve projects, to create projects that actually help with jobs. We could take, for example, the roads, right? The way it's set up right now, we have asphalt that's being used for our roads. And this isn't something I'm saying I'm definitely going to do, I'm just kind of, talking here. But if we switch to hempcrete, right, which is a hemp-based concrete that actually lasts a lot longer, or recycled plastic, we could actually jumpstart an entire industry here. Right. These are things that should be looked at. They're things that we should have people looking into, have, Joe, who has plenty of time on his hands, look into that, do the research on it. And that's what I mean by, they have the staff look into that, instead of spending, if we could, here's the thing: if we could cut these bills down to 20 pages, then they wouldn't need 30 people. They're usually about 18, right? They wouldn't need 5 people, for example, poring over these bills to translate them and tell the representative what they say. I personally would like to read the bill myself, digest it. What does it say? Tell the people what it says. And the way that it's set up, because they give these people these 100, 200, sometimes 1,000-page bills, half an hour before session, right? It's set up to fail. It's set up to sneak things under the radar. The only way to fix it is within the system. We need someone who's willing to get up there and say, no, this is crap. We need to change this. Right?
Right. So, that being said, a recent bill that has been going around, passed or not, I don't know. HE 5717.
Oh, 5717. Yeah.
5717.
Yeah, I know that one well.
Everybody's curious about this one.
Yeah. Paul said recycled tires / rubber roadway. Yeah, that's another thing. We've seen recycled rubber. We've seen recycled plastic. There are other options. Paul also said we need our congressmen to do town forums more than every 2 years. Right. When it's election time, they'll do the town forums. What about in the meantime? But back to your question, 5717. I did a video on this before, but I'll touch on it again. This thing's horrible. And have you read what all's in this?
It threw me all kinds of ways. I was looking at it, and it's like you said, there's so much in there.
Yeah, there's a ton in it.
You read the first part, you get to the second part, and you get all confused there, and now you're confused here, and you forgot what was up there because that was all. Yeah. Yeah.
So basically, what it comes down to is, and they made sure to keep. Excuse me. They made sure to keep weapons that could be grandfathered in, right? So that when they run the fact checks on would it ban assault rifles, it's mixed instead of coming up true on the whole fact checker site. I did from USA Today. I put that on Facebook, a USA Today article that was fact checking, does it ban assault rifles? And Facebook actually flagged it as partly true. It was explaining yes, and it gets that's how bad it's getting with social media, but that's another subject. 5717 would basically take almost every weapon and classify it as an assault rifle, and then it outright bans assault rifles. So anything with a pistol grip, anything with a detachable magazine, like one or two of the following, right? A huge list of weapons. And then at the very end, it also introduces a 50% tax on ammunition. I think it's 50% tax on ammunition and a 30% tax on weapons.
Yeah, it's either one way or the other.
Yeah, one or the other. I'm not 100% on which way it is, but I believe it's a
50% on ammunition.
It's 50% on. I think it's on ammo, just across the top before you figure sales tax or anything else. 50% tax on all ammo across the board, everything. Mm-hmm. And then I want to say 25 or 30, I think it's 30% tax on all firearm purchases across the board, everything. It would require a federal firearms license to even buy a gun. It would basically take the Second Amendment and just set it on fire. Done. And I would not only would I not support that bill, I would be extremely verbal, telling people to call your representatives that aren't in my area, because I'm, dang sure not going to vote for it.
Extreme right then, right?
Well, I mean, I won't say that I'd be extreme right, but I would be a constitutionalist because it attacks the Second Amendment. You've seen my truck. The Second Amendment's important to me. I have it right on the back of my truck because it protects all the other rights. Once they can take the Second Amendment away, the rest of them are prime targets for getting out of there.
Well, I think that if they get any amendment, it'll set up for, we'll just use the same way we got this one.
Right. Well, it takes little pieces. Everything's a little tiny piece, right? Like with the Second Amendment, once they ban this, then they move on to to that. Anyone who says we'll give them that, we'll give them that. We've done that for years. We've done decades. We okay, it's not worth the fight. We'll give up this in order to keep the rest. We shouldn't have to do that. I could go on for hours about that.
Okay, so this is kind of stupid and it's far-fetched.
Okay.
It's kind of, so they made it illegal to drive in a fast lane.
Okay.
On the freeway.
Yeah.
On the inside lane.
Right.
And if you're in that lane
Mm-hmm.
and you're doing 55, 70, whatever the speed limit is, you're doing the speed limit.
You're doing the speed limit.
But you're holding up traffic.
Mm-hmm.
You can get the ticket for that. Because you're holding up traffic. So, that being said,
right.
So now I'm getting a ticket for obeying the law.
Obeying the law.
Exactly.
Right.
So where's the difference when I just killed somebody, I'm in court,
Right.
But I can break this law. I have to, like, you can break this law, but you can't break this law, but you can't break that law, but you can, you know what I mean? And
Right.
it's okay.
No. Yeah.
Yeah,
I see what you're saying. And here's the thing, as a former truck driver, there are very, very few things that irritate me as much as somebody riding that fast lane, right? Just sitting there. Keep right except to pass, right? Keep your butt in the right lane unless you're going around someone. That if you would just do that, everything else would be fine. But let me clarify. If you were doing the speed limit, I don't see how you could be given a ticket if you're doing the speed limit.
if you got 3 cars behind you doing 90 or trying to get by.
Yeah,
right
trying to go. You're doing, let's say it's 70. You're doing even 72, right? You're doing, or even 70, or even 68. You're not. Speed limit means
Speed limit.
speed limit. That's as fast as you can go. We start getting into all kinds of problems because how can someone be ticketed for breaking the law when they're not?
For not breaking the law.
Right,
You're
yeah.
obeying the law.
Yeah.
But see, we're more getting at is where's the line?
Mhm.
You know what I mean?
You're right.
If I can break that law, like the guy that's obeying the law gets in trouble.
Right. Instead of the
So-
people who are trying to speed, they're not getting in trouble.
Right. So
Right.
why is it any different from stealing that candy bar
Mhm.
or you know what I mean?
Right, I do, but it's a slippery slope, and I think it comes down to personal rights and freedom. But when you're absolutely right, when you start telling people and giving them tickets for not breaking the law because people behind them want to break the law, it leads into dark territory. I mean, it really does.
Where's the line?
Where
now,
is the line?
when
Yeah.
you get back up into like, the amendments and
Mhm.
the Constitution and all that stuff, as it rolls downhill, I mean, can they do the same thing? Can
Right.
they break this law to do this? Can you
Right.
break that law? So when they got it all broken down into this is an assault rifle, this is an assault rifle.
Right.
Well, this, pistol or handgun, whatever you want to call it, is
Yeah.
semi-automatic, so we can't let that either because
Right.
that's an assault handgun because
Yep.
it's not a revolver, whatever.
Right. Absolutely. That's what 5717 tries to do, is basically qualify anything. And I want to be very clear because 5717 would, as of right now, there's no official definition of an assault rifle or an assault weapon, right? It's a made up term. There's no official recognized term for it. If 5717 passes, it will lock in what an assault weapon or assault rifle is. And that's why it's so horrible for the Second Amendment, because the last line of it, I actually did a quick breakdown on Twitter of it. The last line of it is that, did you see this? Did you read the whole thing?
No.
When you get to the end, it says that any part of this, if challenged, right, would be challenged individually and would not nullify the rest. What that means is that if this thing passed, in order to get our Second Amendment back, we would have to pick apart this thing in probably hundreds of court cases. It would take forever.
Yeah, it is. It's a lot.
to get our rights back. And okay, so Jack, hold on. Jack wants to say from the Indiana State Police, this is in no way encouraging people to speed. those speeders are definitely in violation also. It's talking about the, the fast lane stuff. Vehicles all travel at different speeds. It was put in place to keep left lane drivers or the family 10 cars back from getting run over by faster traffic while in the left lane. Yeah, I know why it was put there. And again, as a former truck driver, I got a lead foot. I really do. I'm a speeder. But you can't get all crazy at someone because they're obeying the law. Like, I understand why they put it into place. I just don't agree with it.
I totally get it. I do. I understand it's like a safety thing for the people.
It is, yeah.
I just don't understand how the person that is actually doing the right thing can actually get the ticket and get the citation for it, get in trouble.
Right, exactly.
When the person that's doing wrong, it's like, okay, we'll let them go. We'll give this guy, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. So, like you said, it's a heck of a slippery slope.
But
there.
I was just kind of comparing to picking stuff apart.
Right.
So if they can use that, you know what I mean?
Right.
Could
they
pick
absolutely.
Apart the Second Amendment with the bill.
Right.
Picking it apart here and there, and just use the whole. Well, it's okay to break that law, so why can't we break this law? As like a, you know what I mean? Because you hear court cases all the time, and people be like, "Well, back in 1978, Johnson versus whatever. Right. This is what was decided, so that's how we got to go, and that's because it was decided then, so that's how we're going to decide now."
Right. Absolutely. Yeah. Precedent. It sets precedent, and that's kind of what drives the whole legal system now. Once a case is decided, and like he says, I don't agree with it. However, Indiana has defended itself many times with Indiana has the right to keep its citizens safe on its highways. I knew what you meant. So it sets the precedent. So then, in this case, Indiana has the right to keep its citizens safe by enforcing what some would consider to be government overreach. If you're ticketing people for obeying the law, it's a slippery slope.
That's one that I do it. What's his name, Jack?
Yeah, Jack.
I totally understand it. It does keep people safe. I'm sure people don't get hit from behind as much. They get out of the way.
Right.
I totally get the law.
Yeah, I understand it. I just think it might create some issues.
Yeah, it's just the circular effect of it. But somebody's saying, okay, well, I did this, but now they're in court for something else. But you can break that law, but you can't break this law. Now you gotta break it down to me so I can understand what laws I can and can't break.
Right. You know what? That's a fantastic point, because look, it all comes down to, and this is something I was talking about before with the states, right? State rights. I'm a big believer in states' rights. That said, us on the right, we want to complain about sanctuary cities, right? We want to say, no, you can't have that because federal law prohibits it. But people are okay with having states that are legalizing marijuana, even though it's federally still illegal, right? It's a slippery slope. When we start letting states go against federal law, instead of having people who are willing to go, federally and go, okay, obviously this whole thing isn't working. We need to change the law, like change our immigration policies because there are real issues there, or, federally remove it from the controlled substance list because there are medical applications that the VA could utilize. Instead of doing that, the states go their own way, and then we have a big issue. It's two sides of the same coin, but it comes down to whether you believe federal law is kind of the oversight, or whether state law. I'm a big believer in states' rights, but I think we need to. Yeah, I mean, yeah,
we're like our own little country here. Leave us alone.
Right, exactly.
All right, so I read an article, and you know how you never know what you're getting when you read these articles that come across the internet. I tried to look into it the best that I could, and the best that I could was, I believe, Clark County, Nevada.
Okay.
The county suspended all the union contracts.
I read about that a little bit. Yeah, I didn't. I saw the one article, but I was waiting for it to get picked up.
Yeah,
right?
I haven't. I read it on the one that I think I sent it to you.
Yeah.
But then I went deeper into it, and there was an article where it said it gave but it was the manager. It's not like it's not like a representative.
Right.
It was an appointed manager that she did that. She suspended all the union contracts, saying that, well, we need to make changes fast. We need to get distance in between these people. We need to do this, and we can't do that with this contract, the way the languages and all that.
Right.
What do you think about that? What's your stance on union contracts and collective bargaining and all that good stuff?
Well, I was going to bring it up, but you guys can Google it, I'm sure. So here's the thing: if we're going to be taken seriously as a town, right, a county, a city, a state, or the federal government, that's like there was actually a court ruling that was just handed down by the Supreme Court about the Affordable Care Act and the fact that we still owe billions of dollars because of the language of the ACA. And I think Fox News ran with it. I read it earlier. I don't have the link. But it comes down to, in order to be taken seriously, we have to keep our agreements. We made those agreements in good faith. Yes, no one could have foreseen this, even though, well, we're not going to go down that rabbit hole, but.
And I'm not getting too far into it either. I was
just, right.
As a basic.
Yeah, no.
Basic whole.
Right. As far as look, I'm a strong believer in labor.
Knowing though that collective bargaining is kind of not the Republican Party's thing.
Right. And that's, know what, I do want to address that, because that's kind of been seen as the party line, right? In general, the left is pro-labor, the right is pro-business. Here's the thing: you can't have business without labor. It's a symbiotic relationship. You can't have a successful company without people willing to work at that company. They work together. They feed each other. I'm a firm believer in, businesses. I'm a firm believer in labor. If the people who work at a location believe that they'll have better conditions by all banding together, collective bargaining, I'm all for it. It's funny because I didn't know that much about unions. I'd, been a part of a union, but when I ran for this office, and I started talking to, for example, the USW, and all of the questions that were on the questionnaire, I started looking into it and doing my research. And it really bothered me how many businesses violate the law when it comes to stopping collective bargaining, right? Amazon blatantly violates the law, and we know it, right? All the stuff, there's tons of videos out there about how Amazon stops their employees from talking about forming a union. They actually produce literature for their employees, the supervisors teaching them how to union bust. I mean, it's pretty wild, man. But that said, I believe that people have the right to form, collective bargaining, unions, whatever you want to call them. And that's why I'm the only, as far as I know, the only Republican candidate that isn't in favor of right to work the way that it's written right now. I know what they were trying to go for. I think it's too much. It creates so many issues. These places that have signed the union contract, and the funny part is every case that I saw with this, it was a Democrat in office that had said, no, we have to suspend this contract. The side that's usually so pro labor. But it just comes down, in my opinion, to stand by your word. We, as the city, county, whatever, said that this is the way it is, and USW is affected as well. The steel mills, there's union, there's contract issues right now there, and I'm not going to ask you anything. Yeah, he can't say anything. I've read, right, public information. It's not like anybody's telling me anything that's not publicly available. There's in negotiations right now because there are people being laid off that there's a contracts in place, right? They should be expected to uphold those contracts.
Let's ditch that one.
Yeah.
I don't want to stay on that topic
Yeah.
just because I don't want it to look like I didn't.
No, I got you. Yeah,
wax.
Yeah.
I was just wondering, and that's why I used
Yeah.
that just to see where you stand on.
Yeah.
What do you think about them just coming in and saying your contract's done?
Right. I'm against that.
They didn't do that. And
Right.
That's not what's going on. But they
Right.
said your contract's done. Let's, whatever.
Yeah. To clarify, that's not what's going on there. Yeah. I am pro labor in so much as if you have a contract, at least especially because it's a government thing that's going on, where they said, your contract's done, we're suspending it,
Until
deal
we get
with
through
it.
the pandemic.
Yeah.
Now we got to readjust how everybody works.
Right.
Work areas, workstations, spread apart, whatever. Which goes into the next part.
Yeah.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
So, what's it like for you right now, being in a world where you pretty much got to learn as you go because it's your first time running for anything
Yeah.
during a pandemic?
Oh
when
my
you can't
goodness.
go anywhere, you can't do anything, you can't.
Right. So, I've talked a little bit about it before, how we went from, having these forums and these interviews with these places to who they were going to endorse. And, we had the Indiana, Ag Council, the Farm Bureau, stuff like that. And all of a sudden, all this stuff's canceled, right? With no one having any idea of how to move forward, how to reach the people, how to continue to get your message out there. I've done the best that I can to figure that out with, streaming. But ultimately, I'd much rather be knocking on doors and meeting the people. I never really thought about being a podcast host. I wanted to be, a congressman. I wanted to represent the people. But just kind of learning on the fly, running for office. Before this whole pandemic thing, it was one of those situations where, oh wow, number one, there's a lot to this, right? And I knew there was a lot, but I didn't realize how much there is to it. Not just with the swamp that we know is in place, but the backroom deals and well, if you toe the party line, we'll make sure that you get this or that. You scratch my back, I'll scratch yours. It's ridiculous. And then we have, some situations where,
And that's even happening at your level.
oh yeah, oh absolutely, yeah, absolutely. One of the first things, I'm going to say a statement, but I'm not going to go into any more detail until the primary's over, right? The first thing that happened to me when I declared was I got shaken down, right? I got told cough up bucks, or yeah. And that's what's wrong. That's what's wrong with the system. It is absolutely, definitively rigged against regular people. Just, I'm putting that out there. We know that, but it's way worse than anybody thinks. It is absolutely, if you're not seal of approval, yeah, you're not getting the invites. You're not getting the backing. You're going to get left out in the cold. And here's my thing. I'm glad. Right? I don't want to owe anyone any favors. I'm running because I believe that we need people that will run and say, I'm not doing that, right? But yeah, it's been interesting.
So you haven't had to make a lot of pancakes or a lot of plates of spaghetti.
Right? Yeah, I was prepared. Right? I was prepared for the pancake breakfast. I went to a couple. I was ready for the fish fries and the various dinners and all the fundraising fun. Right? I was ready for all of that. I had it all. I'm like, okay, we're gonna do this and this and this. We're gonna have this cool fundraiser at.
Okay, now stop. Your 90-second speech. Come on, spit it out.
Oh, geez. Okay, so right, yeah, you got to have the 90-second. You got to have the 30-second, the 90-second, the 3-minute, and then the 5-minute.
3-minute nothing.
Right.
You could give me the 90-second.
Okay, you want to hear the 90-second?
I never heard the 90-second speech.
Okay, all right. So my name is Dion Bergeron. I live in Michigan City, Indiana. I'm not a politician. I'm a former truck driver, former correctional officer. I've been to 48 of 50 states, and we need to step up. We need to stand up. We need to elect regular people into office to represent us locally, but especially in Washington, D.C. We can look at Washington and tell that it's broken. It's absolutely broken. And the only way to fix what's wrong is from the inside. The only way to fix a system is from the inside.
Good. So now back to the pandemic. I just want to throw you off and
right.
see.
No, that's what it's about,
just
right?
A spot check.
I got you.
Check. So, what advice would you have given the governor if given a chance when it came down to the way this was handled, the way the pandemic was handled?
Right. So here's what I think part of the big problem is in today's political structure, and it goes back to what I was talking about earlier. We have people who are more worried about re-election than they are doing what's best, right? The level of transparency that we've seen is pathetic. I mean, not just from Holcomb, but in general. These daily briefings, I don't think Holcomb is an absolutely abysmal governor like some people do. I don't know why this thing keeps shaking. But because your leg. Yeah. I was like, what's going on here?
Sorry, man.
It's okay. I do it too, right? Yeah, no, I do it too.
It's my first time doing this. So
right.
I'm no Anderson Cooper.
Right. Oh my God. Yeah. So here's the thing. When you approach it from a perspective where you're more worried about those votes than you are about protecting people's rights, then I think that kind of attacks what's wrong with the political system in and of itself. And it's why I'm pretty sure I'm going to be a one-termer, assuming I get elected. I mean, but here's the thing. People determine that.
This might do it for you.
Yeah.
So a lot of people are saying that it's against the Bill of Rights to lock me down.
Yeah.
So you have a 50-50. You have people saying, stay home because I don't want to get sick.
Right.
Then you got another side saying, I want to go to work so I can pay my bills.
Right.
You stay home if you don't want to get sick.
Right.
Let me go to work.
Yeah.
Where do you balance that at?
That you know what?
I mean? How do you?
That's a great question. Here's the thing. It all comes down to personal freedoms, right? And there are, for one thing, we're in a position now where we can look at the data, right? And we can say this wasn't as bad as they said it would be. There are far less, because they were projecting millions of people dead.
At first, yes.
At first, right? They were saying, we're looking at, 2 million people dead. We're looking at, all this. Now we know that those projections are way off.
This is a new thing because it's like we were talking earlier, and now they're saying that coronavirus is a cold. If you get the coronavirus, okay, I'm good. It's not necessarily going to turn into COVID-19, which is the disease that's making people very sick.
Right.
So, I mean, again, you got the one at home talking about, well, I'm a little bit older. I don't want to get it.
Right.
You have to stay home so I don't get sick.
Yeah.
Right. It's like, but wait a minute, you're older.
Right.
Maybe you're retired. You got your pension coming in. You got Social Security coming in. You got all that. But then there's somebody like me. I'm a worker bee.
Right.
I got a house payment. I got a car payment. Now they'll forgive if I'm late, but that doesn't mean I'm not going to have to pay it.
Well,
so as soon as we get back to work, maybe 2 months, 3 months, they're going to be like, okay, well, you didn't pay for that 3 months. I'm not sticking it on the end. You need to pay it now.
Right. All of a sudden, yeah. There have been several articles that have been written, in the news about, okay, so what do we do, right? There are people that are off of work and they're collecting unemployment. Great. If they're able to collect it, because not everybody's included in that part-time worker. There are people with a couple of part-time jobs that don't work full-time and don't qualify. But let's say they do float you, right? They float you for 30 days, 60 days, whatever. When that time's up, they want their money now. How do you take this person's fear and this person's need to feed their family and balance those? It's a good question.
It's just something you're going to have to do.
Right. Absolutely.
You're going to have to put yourself in the middle. And,
right.
You know what I mean? But how would you respond?
Yeah. Well, I have the benefit of looking at the numbers now. That's what I was saying before. We look at the numbers now and we're like, it's not nearly as bad. Here's the thing. What it comes down to for me is the stay-at-home order was initially made so that our medical system could keep up with the projected numbers, right? These numbers that we were told we'd have our hospitals overwhelmed, we needed way too much, the ventilators, we needed this, we needed that, we didn't have enough of this.
Shields,
right.
gowns,
And
everything.
yeah, and the sad fact of the matter is these states were responsible for trying to get, for keeping their stockpiles, right? That's just the way it is. People want to try to twist it. States are responsible. The federal government is there as a backup to help those states. But we have now a situation where the hospitals are laying people off. Some of them are really in danger of closing. We have rural hospitals that are about to go out of business completely because everything has been frozen. Everything's been put on hold. We have to do this. We started it in order to catch up. It was put into place so that we could catch up. We're caught up. Like the hospitals are not overwhelmed. We're noticing via testing, the USC study that recently came out, USC, I forget which one it was. I think it's USC because it was in California. So yeah, I think it was University of Southern California. But this study says that based on the numbers, that this many are infected. I don't remember the exact numbers, but it came out to like 0.2% fatality versus the projected 2 to 4%, sometimes even higher in some cases. And they believe that many, many, many more people were infected and are infected, have already got it and recovered from it. So we have to reopen the economy now. We should absolutely let people know, hey, if you don't feel safe, especially, immunocompromised people that have, lung issues, underlying health conditions, because that's who it's fatal to, right? That's the people most at risk.
So now would they run into a problem like, well, you can go back to work, but you're choosing not to, so now we're not going to give you unemployment?
That's a really good question.
And the company's saying, well, we're not going to pay you because you're not coming to work.
Right.
So
right. That's the only type of legislation that I could see being necessary to come into play. Now, they're going to jump on the bandwagon and say, then you're going to go to those people that claim, to have underlying conditions or whatever because they don't want to work.
Or claim that they're scared.
Or claim that they're afraid just so they can sit at home.
I can see that happening.
Yeah, so can I. What it comes down to is, in any situation, you're going to have people that are going to abuse the system. That's just the way it is. There's nothing that we can do other than try to incorporate some checks and balances into it, right? Try to say, okay, well, if you are at risk, especially underlying conditions are easily proven. If they've already been to the doctor, if it's documented, right? If they have, pneumonia or something else, if they have a compromised immune system, especially, that's easily proven. But just, if you're scared, stay home. Yeah, I mean, that's what it comes down to, because here's the thing. If you're in favor of the entire economy staying shut down because you're afraid, right? Then you are making the choice to affect other people's lives for your belief, want, desire, fear, whatever you want to call it. So then, in that case, if it becomes necessary to reopen the economy, which I believe it is, then you have to be willing to accept the effects of that if you are not willing to participate. I said underlying health conditions is a different story, but if you're just like, oh, the safety measures put into place, masks, gloves, social distancing is not enough for me, I want to stay home, that's a risk. I mean, ultimately, that's what it comes down to. Just like it's a risk when you go and get in your car and drive to work. Auto accidents happen every day. We don't shut down the economy for things like that.
So the people screaming that this is against the Bill of Rights, you have the Bill of Rights, and you can't be like locked down. What would you say to them?
Here's the thing is, I think
there
it
should be
is.
something.
Yeah.
So,
I
like,
mean,
we're talking about the union contract in
Mhm.
Nevada. They have something in their emergency plans or whatever that gives them the power to do that.
Right.
So when we need to make adjustments, we can shut it down. We'll cooperate,
yeah.
but we have to do what we have to do. When we're in a state of emergency, we're going to shut you down and we're going to do what we have to do.
Right.
So now in this case where you got people saying, well, this is against the Bill of Rights, you can't keep me home. Then you got people saying, well, you can't go to work
Right.
because I don't want to get sick.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Is there something in place with the state that you're aware of? I mean, I know that you probably don't know all the ins and outs, but
Yeah.
is there something in place that says, okay, the state can declare a state of emergency, state of disaster, so we're going to go ahead and lock you all down, and you're going to, or
Right.
not
Well,
lock down, because we're still allowed to go to the store, do essential stuff.
right.
I'm probably going to get ticketed on my way home because this is probably not considered essential, but
Yeah. Well, listen, I'm going to tell you, no, that's a good point, because Michigan City, as far as I know, still has the
10:30 curfew.
Yeah, the curfew in place, right? Michigan City Police Department, LaPorte County has already stated on record they are not pulling people over for being out.
Right.
However,
If you get in
if
trouble,
you get in trouble for something else, they will happily add that charge
Right.
on, and have
I see
in
it,
several
usually
occasions.
It's added onto like DUI.
Yeah, it's usually a DUI or something, and it's just call it what you want, stacking charges, whatever. There have been multiple challenges to the various governors' stay-at-home orders. I don't know that I would have, made some of the decisions that the governor has made in this case. I'm a firm believer in, personal liberty and freedom. I expect a lot of lawsuits. I expect a whole lot of lawsuits after this is over.
If the governor said, "Hey, Dion,
Right,
what do you think I should do?"
right.
What would you tell him?
For one thing, I've watched Governor Holcomb's live streams, and the man is an expert at talking for a long time and saying not much. For one, just be straight. Just be straight with people. I think that's probably the biggest piece. And I understand I'm not a politician. I'm not in the circle. I'm not trying to, hedge my bets. But I think the population would respond much better to, look, here's what we're trying to do. We're planning on opening up on this day, but we don't know if we're going to extend it yet because all the numbers are not in. Here's the numbers. Here's what we're thinking. That's the way it is. My personal advice is let Indiana get back to work, man. We have factories all over the place that are laying people off, that are putting people on furlough, that sometimes, in some cases, are firing people and shutting their doors because there's no way they're going to survive. Not just factories, but small businesses. I got a buddy who works in South Bend. They make car parts for GM. They make engine parts. And when GM started idling down, that was it, because everything's such a just-in-time, production. Things are so reliant on each other. So this place, probably gets steel from the steel mills here. I'll have to ask them. I don't know for sure, but definitely gets, some type of metal, crafts it with machines into the parts that are needed, then ships those parts to GM for their engines, right? Or puts them together for engines or whatever. So when GM started making ventilators instead of engines, it came down to that plant getting shut down. And then since that plant doesn't need steel, the steel mill starts, reducing their production. And we've got all this stuff that's piling up because our economy is so interdependent on every other business. And it really comes down to, do you want to stay at home scared and afraid, or do you want to get back to life, because life has risk? I'm sorry, I don't want anyone to be hurt. I don't want anyone to perish. I don't.
But a virus is a virus. It's
But
going to be here.
a
It's
virus,
not going anywhere.
yeah,
It's gonna,
you're not going to cure a virus. There is no cure for it. It's not going to happen. We've had viruses here for, the entire time we've been here. We have viruses here now. Some that are some are worse than this one as far as rates go. There were millions of people with H1N1 that
was ugly.
It was horrible. It was
Oh
horrible.
man, that was bad.
And we're not even close to shutdowns and weren't. You're right. We weren't even close to this then. So
I don't think, did we even shut down?
no, I don't even think we did anything, did we? Other than talk
remember.
about it a lot. Well, not even a lot because
Whoa.
the press were so nice. The press was so nice to the administration.
And I had long johns on, and I had a jacket on, and then I had a coat on, and I'd get up into a payloader, and I'd turn on the heat and I'd get it cranked up as hot as it would go, and keep it warm in there.
Yeah.
I'd take my Carhartt. I had a Carhartt.
Yeah.
I would take that off, curl up in a little ball, cover up with the Carhartt as much as I could, and sit there and shiver.
Right.
I was cold. Everything hurt. I was miserable.
Yeah.
So when I started feeling better,
Right.
I decided, well, I'm going to go get a thermometer. I haven't had a thermometer. If I feel all right today, I'm going to go get a thermometer.
Yeah.
Had 102 fever still. I was
Yeah.
like, oh man, this is bad.
Yeah. You must have been really, really burned up. Yeah.
So that turned into the urgent care, and I've been followed by bronchitis. I tested positive for the flu and bronchitis. I was all inhalers and all kinds of stuff, and it was
Right. Well,
I would imagine this is going to be kind of the same thing.
Yeah.
If it doesn't turn into that disease part, the disease lungs with the COVID-19,
Right.
that's the part that's a little unnerving.
Right. Well, I just read on one of my previous shows. I just read an article that was I believe it was Herald Argus, where they talked about, we believe here in Indiana that we've had it for months, going that it already came through back in December, January, February.
People were getting sick.
Yeah, we had tons of people getting sick,
and everybody testing negative for the flu.
Yeah, it wasn't the flu. So what was it? And I do believe that once all the numbers come out, we're the real numbers, not the inflated numbers, right? The real numbers, once they come out, we're going to see that this is a lot less deadly than we were told. It might be as contagious as we're told, but it's definitely not as deadly as they led us to believe.
It depends on what you have, though. If you just have the coronavirus,
Right.
you have a cold. That's not
right.
That's not going to be deadly.
Right. It's the underlying conditions that mess you up.
No, if it turns into the disease, the COVID-19 that
right.
we're talking about,
yeah,
that's when they might be able to say, well, you know what, 80% of the people really died of COVID-19. They had COVID-19, but not that had the coronavirus.
Right.
Just
right.
that part of it.
Yeah.
I don't know if they run hand in hand. I don't think that every case of coronavirus turns into COVID-19.
Yeah. I don't know the science on it. What I know for sure though is that we've had health departments that have been told to fudge the numbers. Here's the thing.
I'm not saying that either. That's all him.
Yeah, that's me. We've seen evidence. Dr. Burke said it. We had the senator from I think it was Minnesota, or I'm not sure. It was a senator who is a doctor, and he got a letter from the health department that told him presumptive, right? Even if they haven't been tested. Here's my point is, how can we make informed decisions without real numbers? Unless we have real, unaltered data, right? Because if you look at the numbers, all of a sudden, all the flu cases are way down here. Apparently we cured the flu because we're not having flu issues anymore. Everything's being presumed to be related to this, right? So unless we have real numbers, we can't make real informed decisions about either the economy or the health, right?
Okay, so if you were able to give the governor your opinion, he asked you, what would you do?
Right.
You'd open the economy back up.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Okay. Open the economy, institute safety guidelines, because that's what it comes down to. If you feel the need to wear personal protective equipment, PPE, then by all means wear it. If you feel the need to avoid certain locations, then that's your choice. If you need to stay home because you have underlying conditions, then do so. But we have to start getting back to good.
Back to normal.
Yeah, back to normal. I don't even know if it's going to be back to normal, but at least start gearing back up, because the way it sits right now, we're just circling the drain.
Well, it kind of seems to me that if something don't happen soon, that people are just going to start doing it.
Oh yeah. Oh, absolutely.
So
My son actually was talking about that. The 17-year-old who he works at McDonald's. He's like, we're seeing more and more people that are like, okay, this is enough, and they'll talk through the window.
I mean, it's going to be everyday life. It's going to be here, and there's nothing that anybody can do about it.
Right.
So that being said,
Mhm.
how do you keep the peace? So you got, say, people inside the prisons.
Yeah.
Westville has their COVID unit. You got inmates calling home.
Yeah.
Mom, this is jacked up. Mom's calling Congress. Mom's down there with a sign saying, let my people go.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, how would you approach that? How would you deal with that?
That again, great question. Again, in my opinion, it comes down to transparency. I think all government agencies in general would have a lot less issues if they just be honest up front. There's not enough testing at the facilities, right? They need to acquire more testing. Do more testing. Westville, apparently there was an incident. I put it on my official page where an officer was beaten badly. It comes down to what happened at that facility, right? What led to that? And one of the key things that leads to that is by not letting people know what's going on. I don't know. I didn't work at Westville, so I can't speak to the way that Westville's run. I worked at Indiana State Prison, but what I will say is we need someone who is willing to look into things and willing to make things happen so that this doesn't happen again. When you have a situation where you have a bunch of people in one location that are scared, bear in mind what the media has been doing with this. They don't have access to the internet. Right? They don't have access to the information that we have that tells us it's not as bad. Right? Like the USC study, like all the stuff coming out that's like, oh, okay, the initial fear was hyped up. Imagine being in a, Westville's different. It's a dorm style. It's not as, max security as ISP is. But imagine being in a prison, it's still a prison, and hearing all the things on CNN, MSNBC, the way that the fear porn that they're pushing, and being with all these other people who are hearing the same things you are, it's a powder keg.
But don't have access to anywhere near as much. So it's
right.
Probably a lot of the fear of the unknown.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. They're being told, remember, they're being told by the media that we're, especially at the beginning, millions of deaths. My understanding, reading the article, and I've been told that the article is not 100% accurate. I don't know. I can't speak to the accuracy of the article. What I do know is that according to the article, they're shutting the TVs off when the news is on. They were not letting offenders listen to the news. They're not letting them contact, home or any of that stuff.
Not letting them call home or anything?
That's what the article, yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, I didn't either until I read the article. And I might be wrong on that. What I do know is that it's a very fear-rich environment there. They're definitively, according to the article, again, they're turning off the TV. They're not giving these guys any information. And the people that were given PPE, according to the article, again, there was no instruction on how to utilize it, whether it was for a day, a week, a month. There's insufficient communication there.
So communication's the answer, you think?
I believe, because here's the thing.
That's the way it always was when I was there. If you were honest with somebody and you just told them,
right,
they're okay with that. They can deal with that. They know that their situation is. But
exactly. Yeah, that's the thing.
Wasn't there 2 incidents?
Yeah. So the worst one is the one that recently happened that was in News Dispatch and so on. But before that, there was actually I think it's called the Westville Inquirer or Inquisitor. It's a Westville local paper that talked about the lack of PPE there and the high percentage of those that are tested coming back positive. It talked about offenders being afraid to speak, officers being afraid to speak. I actually, you know what? I'm going to get it and link it to you because it's really quite a scary.
We'll do that after it's over.
Yeah, I'll drop it in the comments after this is over at the end. But it again, when at least when I worked at ISP, if you and I always tried to be straight up and honest with the guys because
firm and consistent.
Yeah, firm, fair, and consistent. You tell them, look, here's the deal, right? I'm not going to string you along. You know, I can't do that, or you know, this or that. It is what it is. They understand that. They know that things are the way they are. But if there's a constant fear there, an aura of secrecy, it's going to blow. Like, it's going to blow. In the Westville Inquirer, or whatever it is, article, I don't remember which one it is. It might even be something else. I know it's Westville. They talk about another incident that happened where it was much less serious than this. There was just, a little bit of rowdiness. And we've seen there's kind of sometimes things happen and there's just there's no way to predict it. A guy just snaps. But in general, we've seen the buildup.
You can feel it.
You can feel it. Yeah. Yeah. You can feel it. You can look and be like, oh, something's going to happen. Right. At that point, you have to start making intelligent, informed decisions about what you're going to do. And I fear
to stop that from happening.
And I think communication goes a long way. My understanding, based on the article, is that the offenders and officers are not being told anything. They're just being left in the dark.
That's nothing new.
Exactly. Yeah, it's nothing new. It's the way it works. I've said before, the biggest issue with the prison was the aura of secrecy, the fact that you couldn't say anything for fear of retribution. Next thing you know, you'd be in C cell house instead of working in a tower or whatever. Yeah, this.
I don't really like the towers anyway. I was a little too hyper for all that.
Yeah. It wasn't. Here's the thing is.
Okay, so you think communication is probably the big thing?
Yeah,
communication
absolutely.
would probably settle a lot of that down.
I think it would. Just speaking to the guys as human beings, and not a mass casualty event type thing would go a long way. Okay. As individuals, I should say. Not they speak to them as humans, but as individuals capable of intelligent and rational thought, I think it would go a long way.
Okay, so there's a lot of people that think the limiting occupants inside a store is kind of pointless. Reason being is because they say if somebody coughs, this stuff could stay in the air for however long. It's droplet transferred.
Right.
Me, I'm bad. I'll wear a mask if I have to, but I refuse to run scared. Some people call it stupid, but I just can't run around wearing all this stuff all the time because honestly, I really don't think it's going to help a whole lot.
Right.
I mean, it could. I don't know.
Yeah.
I have that firm belief that I don't go out and try to do it. I'm not going up trying. I don't want to feel somebody's breath when they're talking to me. I'm not trying to get close to people. I wash my hands. I take care of myself. I do what I'm supposed to do.
Yeah.
So I have this feeling that if I'm going to get it, I'm supposed to get it.
Yeah.
So when we come off this lockdown, or the stay-at-home order, we'll call it.
Yeah.
I don't want to refer to it as a lockdown because. So we come off this order,
right,
and we go back to work.
Mm-hmm.
We can't wear a mask for the rest of our life. It's always going to be here.
Right.
I wash my hands. I keep myself clean. Mm-hmm. I was just joking about not showering for like a week to ensure social distance. That was a joke.
I know.
But I could still get it from droplets, and that's going to go on forever. So
yeah.
Limiting the occupants inside a store. Mm-hmm. Like I had to go to Costco today. I went to Costco this morning. And it didn't take long because they were letting in like 20 people at a time. And as 20 people came out, 20 people went in, and you know, they kept a constant flow. So it didn't really take a whole long time. But the line was all the way down the side of the building, and and I was like, oh man.
Yeah.
But everybody inside, they're still practicing social distancing. They're still doing their thing. So why? I mean, I now they can't let 5,000 people in there because everybody was shoulder to shoulder. Mm. But if there's only like, they're allowing X amount of people per square foot.
Right.
So, I mean, what would you? how would you address that? So here I am saying, man, I think this is stupid. What do you think?
Yeah.
I don't think this is doing nothing. What do you think?
Right. I don't think that there's anything wrong per se with a maximum occupancy, especially to start with, right? I think that's going to go a long way toward.
But the maximum occupancy is, say, 1 per every 3 square feet, or
Right,
5
right.
square feet, or something like that.
Yeah.
So the store like Costco, 9 times out of 10, you go out there, you'll be in the store, you'll bump into probably 16 people getting down the first aisle.
Right.
You're in line for, I mean, they do
Yeah.
pretty good. They're pretty
Yeah.
fast, but you're still in line for a while.
Right.
The line's all the way down the first aisle. A lot of people.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm not saying that, but
Right.
like they got it right now. It's like I went to Walmart one day and it probably took me 20 minutes to get inside. One came out, one went in.
Right.
And you go in and it's like a ghost town.
Yeah. Yeah.
They're only allowed so many people per square foot.
And it's a huge distance, like that they factor in, massive like size, one person per, I forget what the exact is, but you're right. When you go in, it's like nothing, right? It's like there's nobody
right.
around.
But so we know though that it's not, we're not getting close to people,
Mhm.
but we know that somebody could have coughed and there's droplets in the air. So it really doesn't matter, is
Right.
what I'm saying. So
Yeah.
you got me standing there saying, you know what, this is dumb.
Mhm.
We need to get rid of this because I got, I'm on my way to work. I got to
Right.
stop on my way to work, grab something for lunch, but I got to wait for a half hour. That means I got to
Right.
leave a half hour earlier.
Yeah.
And I work a 12-hour shift. I got about a 35, 40-minute
Right.
both ways.
Yeah.
So that's already like 16 hours.
Mhm.
Now I got to make a half-hour stop to grab something to eat on my way in.
Right.
And that's kind of crazy. So
Yeah.
now here I am. I'm like, dude, we got to do something about this. What are you going to do?
Right.
You're my congressman. I start with you. What are you going to do?
Right. Well, that's the thing is there are going to be people that believe that, and there are going to be those people that are the exact opposite. That are
And I get that, but
Yeah.
I'm here right now saying, what
Right.
are you going to do for me? You're
Yeah.
my congressman. You're working for me right now because I'm the one here talking to you.
right.
What are you going to do?
Yeah.
How are you going to approach that?
Right.
How are you going to deal with it and come to
Yeah.
a happy medium with everybody?
No,
You know what I mean?
absolutely, absolutely.
What are you going to take back to the governor? What are you going to tell him? Hey,
Right. Right.
This is what I heard today.
Yeah,
You know?
I understand that, you're upset. You have every right to be upset because, this is influencing your life. I think the thing to keep in mind here is we all have to get along. I understand your point of view that this isn't doing anything, and gas stations don't seem to have the same kind of requirement that.
Well, I don't know, dude.
Yeah.
I went to get my oil changed today, and only 2 people were allowed in the. There
Oh,
was 2
really?
chairs. Yeah.
Oh wow,
They
okay,
have 2 people in the chairs, and then they stopped at Family Express to get some Blistex.
yeah,
They had plastic things you could pull off to open the door.
uh-huh.
Plastic
Yeah.
things you take out to punch buttons if
Right.
you're using a debit machine. I was like, wow, man, this is a lot of stuff.
Yeah, I did see that at Family Express,
And
for example.
I'm not
but-
saying that I'm like this.
Right.
Don't get me wrong. I do get kind of frustrated sometimes.
Right, you're
because
giving an example.
You're
Yeah,
kind of
I
in a hurry, but yeah, I mean, because you're going to have to deal with people like this sometimes that are just like, hey, you
Yeah.
know,
Oh,
okay.
yeah.
Now, I wasn't like 100%, like serious when I did this.
Right, right.
I went to the doctor to pick up a prescription one time, and she came out and she's like, you really need to give us more than a day's notice, because I emailed them that morning. I was
Right.
like, hey, I need to pick up my prescription today.
Right,
And it's because I've been working and, whatever.
right.
And I just kind of looked at her. I'm like, wait a minute. I'm like, when I come in here, you guys bill my insurance, right? Y'all get paid. I pay my copay. You're working for me.
Yeah.
And there's people with that attitude. And there's people
There
that
are.
are going to be like that.
There are.
Like, hey, what are you going to do for me?
Right.
How come you seem to be working for all these other people? What are you going to do for me?
Yeah.
So how would you address that? How would you deal with it?
That's actually a really great point. So the thing to understand is that when you are a representative for the people, you're a representative for all the people. And there are going to be those that are, you work only for me, right? There are those people who might believe that, at least for this moment, you work only for me. And I have to represent those people as well. Here's the thing is, let's use the most extreme of it, and let's say that this pandemic was the worst case scenario, that it did everything that the news media claimed it would do. You would still have those people that were like, this is inconveniencing my life. It has to stop right now. And they would march into the office or pick up the phone and say, fix it now, right? And you have to be able to deal with those people. I would tell them, and as calmly and, honestly as I could, I understand that you're being inconvenienced, but unfortunately, these are the rules that have been set down. But number one, I don't have any control over those rules. As a federal, as a congressman, I can't tell the governor, change this. But what I can do is I understand your concern.
But couldn't you take that to the governor?
Absolutely.
Getting all these complaints.
Yeah, absolutely. Could I pick up the phone and to the governor's office and be like, listen, Eric,
exactly. How would you handle that?
Yeah.
That's what I'm asking you.
Yeah.
What would you do?
Well, I think if I'm getting a constant barrage of complaints, just like, look, you have to take it seriously when a large portion of the population shows up in front of the governor's mansion and says, reopen Indiana, right?
Hasn't that already happened?
That's what I'm saying. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. You have to take that seriously. Just like you have to take seriously the people that show up at, your office demanding, hey, you have to do something about this. You might work for the federal government, but we live in Indiana. You live in Indiana. Fix this.
You're representing me.
That's exactly.
How people look at it. Everybody is kind of like, you work for me.
Right.
You also work for him. But right now, I don't care about him.
Don't care, right?
I'm inconvenienced, so I want you to be working for me.
Right. And
yeah.
Yeah. And look, here's the thing too with that is I think actually that my experience at the prison helps in that regard, because there were plenty of times when there were guys that were like 99% sure that they were going to hurt somebody that day. Right. And I was like 90% sure that this was going to end up bad. And I was able to talk them down off of that ledge, as it were. I'm sure you've been there.
90% sure it wasn't me that was going to get hurt.
Right. But still, nonetheless, yeah. You see it and you're like, oh, okay, this is going to go bad, right? E-Squad's about to have to get called or whatever. But I was able to talk those people down. I was able to say, look, man, I understand you're angry. I understand you're frustrated. Let's talk about how we can fix this realistically. Let's talk about what my options are to help you. I'm going to go through them. Here's what I can do. What would you like me to do? I will absolutely pass along your frustration and anger to the governor, and I will tell him that the citizens in Indiana are getting fed up, that we need to open this state up because we have people that are losing their livelihood. So, we have people that are losing their lives because of this.
Okay, so that's that part. Okay, so you answered that. You
right.
Communicate with the governor.
Yeah.
Basically, the natives are getting restless.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
So obviously getting restless.
They're
protesting all over the place. Groups are getting broke up in parking lots. Now, when this whole thing, when it started, because I would come down 20. I would go through the car wash, wash all that junk off my car.
Right.
There was always like a car club or something in the parking lot out there by Sonic.
Yeah.
And I mean, they were like huddled. They'd be all, and I'd be like, I'm looking, I'm like, what the heck's going on here? And they're saying, I got to stay at my house and this is what's happened.
Right.
I didn't understand.
Yeah.
Right. And they're just obviously doing it blatantly.
Right.
They're like, I know I'm not supposed to be doing this, but I'm doing it anyway.
You're
telling me to social distance. Check this out. I'm hugging my brother right here,
Yep.
And that's, it's cool. That's what they want to do. But so they're breaking groups like that up. I remember the case in Mishawaka, and then I saw that it wasn't true, not 100% either way. They just ran everybody out, put barricades up, not letting anybody hang out. But people are getting, they're getting restless.
Yeah.
They're tired. Some people like to be home. Me, in my case, I got me and 2 cats.
Yeah. Right.
My personal life is my phone.
Yeah.
That's it. I get tired of looking at it.
Yeah.
So maybe I could catch some Netflix, or something. I don't know, but it's getting to the point now. This is like my second or third time. Our schedule works funny, so I'm scheduled out for a week. This is like the second or third week.
Right.
That it was just essential. So anything I do, I try to group everything together. If I want to, I drink a lot of those protein shakes.
Right.
Healthy living or whatever.
Okay.
I think ours is a healthy life Laporte. So I'll go there and I'll get a shake and I'll stop.
I've heard good things about them.
Oh man,
is it good?
Oh man,
yeah, I've heard really good things about them.
Yes, they're very good. They just got a new one, MC Nutrition over there by AT&T, and like Myers parking
Yeah,
lot.
yeah, over there.
They have one in the square.
Yeah,
Sure.
I've been to the one in the square.
Okay, I'm not sure
yeah,
where that
it was,
one is. I just know it's up in the square.
Yeah, it's right across from the water department, I think.
Okay.
Right in that area.
Right. But yeah, awesome. And if you like are struggling with like a sweet tooth, but you want to stay healthy,
yeah,
perfect. They got all kinds of flavors. Some people really don't like them. I was really surprised. I got somebody told me one time like too expensive. They didn't taste good. I haven't had one that didn't taste good.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Okay. Like it's got the Ralph seal of approval.
Yes.
Yeah. Good to know.
So that being said, so now it's like my so many week that yes, I do get out of the house because there's stuff that I have to do.
Right.
But I kind of bunch. Shake, is that totally essential? Absolutely, I need to eat. You know?
Right. Yeah, you have to eat. Right.
But I'll bunch that up with the trip to the grocery store or whatever. So if I go out at 9 o'clock in the morning, I'm back by 10 o'clock in the morning, and I'm there.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's starting to get to the point where I'm like, I don't know how long I can do this.
Right.
So how do you respond? How do you deal with your people that are getting to the point now where they're just like, you know what? It's like you said, a lot of people going to McDonald's now.
Right.
A lot of people just doing stuff now, and they're like, it's almost like they're taking it into their own hands. Yeah. They're like, I'm going to do what I'm going to do. Forget you guys and what you say.
Well, bear in mind too that the reason that all these stores were told to stop selling, essential items or to, limit the number of people is because we had people in the middle of the night wandering Walmart or in the middle of the day wandering Walmart because they were bored. Right? They weren't going to shop. They were just going to wander.
I understand, even though I don't really agree with the, okay, well, we're going to block off the coloring department because that's not essential. We're going to, all we're going to sell is food. Right. I get that because then people are going in, getting what they need and getting out. They're not browsing around. Do I think it's right? No, but I understand it.
Yeah. Same.
So, but how do you deal with these people like me that I usually keep a bald head?
Yeah.
Now I'm trying to grow my hair out just so I can pull it out.
Right. Right. No, I hear you. So
you got a couple cats. They're not very good conversationalists. I pet one, but it didn't say nothing.
Right. Yeah.
The same way. They're pretty quiet.
Yeah, they're pretty quiet. I got one that'll talk to you for hours. As long as you say, meow to him, he'll meow back at you. It's
really.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. That one. Okay.
Yeah. His name's Deck. He'll talk to you. Absolutely.
All right.
But so it really just comes down to treating people like people, right? Not treating them like idiots and telling them, we'll just stay home and everything's going to be fine. Understanding that I guess it just comes down to empathizing, right? So you have the governor who you see the governor, he's out every day. He's doing these press conferences and these informational live streams, and he's surrounded by people. When you're doing and these, not just the governor, but other, people that are just packed in like sardines, for example, and they're telling you, hey, go socially distance yourself, but we're okay. We're not wearing masks. We're not, keeping a distance. Every single day we're doing this, but you have to be forced to, to stay in. That's what people are tired of, right? That's what people are getting sick of, is being treated like they're less than.
You're kind of off the subject. Sorry, you're probably running. What time is it?
Yeah, we're 1:48.
Okay. I mean, I don't care about time. I just don't want to keep people if they're, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So the question is more or less, how do you deal with the people that are having these problems?
Right.
How do you mediate between them and the governor? How do you respond to their problem? Like, I'm going nuts, man. What are you going to do for me? You know what I mean?
I mean, really, though, it just comes down to, I can relay their problems, but as a member of Congress, I mean, I can relay their information. I can calm them down. I can talk to them, but I represent them on a federal level, not a state level. So it's kind of hard to say that I can make something happen with the governor, because I can't. I can, call his office and be like, hey, the natives are getting restless. They're angry, but I can't make him do anything. I can't,
Right, but we're supposed to be able to call you to solve these problems.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
That's what I'm asking you. Basically, is I call you with this problem. What are you going to do? the whole idea, my whole idea is here is I'm
Yeah.
just trying to share stuff that you can
Right,
let people
right.
know, hey, look, this is how I would handle this. This
Right.
is how I'd handle that. Yeah, I know there's not a whole lot you can do
Yeah,
with a lot of this,
yeah,
but it's just like kind of like how would you respond? What
Right.
I call you, but like, dude, I'm bored.
Right.
I'm really bored. I really need to get out of here. I'm tired of drawing on the wall. Whatever.
right.
I got to get out and do something.
Yeah.
You know. Would you call the governor and be like, hey man, why don't we open up parks as long as they keep distances?
Yeah, for one thing,
you know what I mean? Stuff
yeah,
like that.
Yeah,
You
like
know?
for example, Indiana State Parks, right? Initially, they were like, "Oh yeah, we're going to leave them open," and then they decided they were going to shut down all the outdoor gun ranges, which I was not happy about, because like it's literally set up for social distancing. That's I mean, it's already there, but
Well, you have to.
yeah, well, that's what I'm saying.
It's a
Like,
gun
it was just stupid. So I would absolutely, like, if I was the rep at that point, I would absolutely be calling the governor or the Parks Department or whoever made that decision and being like, look, there's already going to be a massive number of issues of people that need something to do, and let's face it, sunlight's good for you, exercise is good for you, it's all good for you.
Some people just like to shoot. You don't want to leave them at home with them.
Right, yeah. Yeah, I mean, that's right, yeah.
All right, so I'm going to close up really for me. Does anybody else ask any
Okay.
questions, or is it just me jabbering?
No, they're pretty much just, listening.
Just
and,
commenting.
Yeah, commenting and stuff, so.
So how would you begin to get things back to normal? What steps would you take to get people back to work? The governor says, all right, guys, I want federal help.
Yeah,
You know?
okay.
So
Yeah.
now you got to deal with your people, your community, and you got to come up with some kind of plan to get everybody back to work, get them back to work safely, whatever that is.
Right,
Make
right.
sure nobody gets sick, I guess. I don't
Yeah.
know.
Yeah. So, first of all, I would have had, from the beginning of this, I would have had staff looking into what we can do, right? How can we more easily transition back to work from the beginning of it? And we have to have additional testing, I believe, especially in areas like the prison, because no matter, yes, those areas are closed off, they're independent, but they affect their communities because these correctional officers come and go. They go home, they go to stores, they go to all of that. We need to have that. I think it's important to understand what the boundaries are between federal and state. If the governor called my office and was like, hey, I need federal help, then absolutely, because our goal is to get back to normal. Let's get him federal testing equipment, test kits, swabs, all the things that he needs. I'd have been on that already, because
Isn't like federal and state kind of like commissioned and non-commissioned.
You
go in there, tell him. No, I'm joking.
Yeah, no. Right. If only. Right. If only. If that's the way it was, I think things would be a lot easier getting things done. Now, as far as agencies, like the federal agencies believe that way. Like the FBI thinks that they're over everybody else. We see that over and over. But yeah. So we're going to close up. We're close to 2 hours. It went longer than I expected. So if you stuck in all the way, then wow, well done. Well done for our marathoners.
It's kind of long-winded. How do you guys think you did?
Right. Let us know in the comments.
I want to see what you did. Everybody's like, I'm asleep.
Right. I think we got people that drifted off. I know Paul's still with us. He said DNR when we were talking about what shut stuff down. So we got some likes. We got this. I appreciate it. A lot of the videos are getting watched after after people get off of work and stuff like that. So and videos like this, yeah, we're still on.
Oh, I thought you closed already.
No, not yet.
Playing with my phone.
Right, that's fine. So when you get a chance, watch it. Break it up into small segments if you like. The thing about lives is there's not a lot of editing I can do to kind of splice it together for you. I'm going to try to get somebody to get on that and kind of break them down into maybe smaller, easier to digest segments. Paul said, "Thanks, Ralph. You did killer." So yeah, absolutely. So again, thank you very much for coming out. You
gotta do this again,
appreciate, yeah, absolutely. I think we got a lot covered.
Once I started warming up a little bit, like right at first, I've never done anything like this before, so I was kind
of yeah. Well, that's
that's
how my son is. Both of them they were really nervous about the whole camera thing and being on camera and all of that. My oldest, he had to have his guinea pig, right, to help keep him calm. He gets anxious, but once you get into it, you kind of, you tend to forget it's there. You're just, like having a conversation and look, there's a light. Right.
Yeah.
No, absolutely. And it's a very good question. Paul said he loved the questions, hard hitter. So again, thanks everybody, especially if you stuck it out to the end. I appreciate it.
I even had a hard time, just so you guys know.
Right. I meant to have the ticker going, and I actually got involved in the questions and answering the questions. So we'll let those put those on there for a second.
Quick,
okay, yeah.
I almost forgot. One more question.
Yeah.
Which Democratic candidate would you endorse?
Ooh, that's a good question.
Yes, and that came from somebody. That's why I was like, because I didn't have it on my list.
Yeah.
That was sent to me, so I didn't,
So here's the thing, right? The only one I think at this point, realistically, that I would even consider putting an endorsement behind, Democrat, right?
Mm-hmm.
The only one that I could even consider at this point, knowing what I know about each candidate, is probably Frank Mervan. Just because as a township trustee, he did actually help people. A lot of these other people, their motives are in question.
What Democratic opponent do you have the most respect for? Is actually
Frank
how it was
Mervan.
worded.
Yeah.
So I mean, kind of the same thing.
Yeah. I mean, if I had to endorse, somebody on the other side, but I would say Frank Mervan. But I will say this though, I lost a lot of respect for the man after he pulled his endorsement approval of Joe Biden after people spoke up, right? I mentioned that in a video earlier. I said the one thing that we need is someone who's willing to stick by. If you made a mistake, if you regretted doing that, then say so. Say, you know what? I didn't realize this would be such a controversial issue. Maybe I'm not going to vote for him or whatever. But when you say, oh, yeah, this guy's great, I can't wait to vote for him, blah, 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 blah. And then when people go, yo, this guy's mentally deficient, he's this, he's that. And you go, your response is to delete your post and go, well, it wasn't exactly an endorsement. Then I kind of lost some. Not that he cares what I think about him, but
didn't you tell me one time that he was? Never mind.
Okay, no, it's fine. Frank Mervan is the one that was endorsed by the USW. He also has.
Picture. Let me get out the way.
Yeah, no, I'm just saying he has nothing to do with that. He's not, he's just a guy who happens to work there. But and I disagreed with that. I publicly stated why I disagreed with it, but it's ultimately up to them, right? And it just comes down to him being for Medicare for all, which I feel would be a detriment to the union workers who worked so hard for the insurance that they have. I don't think it's a positive thing. I don't think it would work out well. It's just what it comes down to. So
you could go even further than that. Don't even put it. It's just a union.
Yeah.
There's other people out there too that do have benefits that it might.
Oh yeah. Not just the benefit. Not just the union. Absolutely. And that's why.
It's kind of a
right. No, that's the thing with Medicare for all is there's so much to consider. There really is. It's not an easy issue to look at and go, oh yeah, that's definitively this or that, because there's so much to it. There's so many numbers. There's so much math. There's economic issues there. So there's a ton to get into with that.
So here's a good one.
Okay.
I got one more question. This one's going to put your head on the chopping block. You ready?
Okay. All right. Here we go.
Okay. Medicare for all is proposed.
Okay.
Congress, Senate, Speaker, President, everybody.
Right.
Medicare for all means Medicare for all, right?
Right.
So they should have to take this insurance.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know about the whole Affordable Health Care Act, but
right.
the way it looks, the way I don't think that was a issue for them.
No. They have a whole separate deal.
Right.
Yep.
The Affordable Health Care Act came down to the people.
Right.
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 So, but if it's Medicare for all,
right,
then it should be Medicare for all.
I agree.
You know.
Yeah.
So
now, I will say that is whatever plan is enacted should be across the board. Congress should absolutely be subject to it. They should be subject to the same exact stuff we are. So at the 2-hour mark, I'm going to bid you adieu and say thanks for tuning in. We will see you tomorrow on another episode of Dion's Daily Dose. And got a special guest for you on Wednesday, Joe Haney. I will put that out. Actually, I'm going to put both video links out tonight, both tomorrow's, which isn't going to have a guest. I might bring Donovan on or Orion if he's not working. I'm not sure what his schedule is. I'll find out. So thanks for sticking in, and we'll see you tomorrow. God bless you, and God bless the United States of America.